Well, what's up, y'all? Happy Monday. Welcome into another edition of DNVR Rams Live, presented by our friends at Branded Bills. Head to brandedbills.com. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. When there's the Friday night games, there's maybe too much time between the thrill of the game and the post-game show, because this really was an awesome win, and I'm going to try and capture the excitement of that. But this was a much-needed performance from CSU. I joked about it on Friday's show, but it felt like they were due for a moment to pull us back in. Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. That type of performance. In some sense, the 49-21 win over Fresno State is validating because it shows what is possible, especially on the offensive side. Defensively, I think it'll probably be a bit of a mixed bag over the second half of the season, just because the injuries have really taken their toll. Some young guys are stepping up, and that's really encouraging. This team needed a win. I just loved seeing this type of performance against a quality FBS opponent. I don't think Fresno State is some dominant team this year or anything like that, but they had won 5 in a row. They were playing quality football. They had done a good job, especially in the couple weeks leading up to this performance, of really dictating the tempo, the style of play. And it felt like finally, really for the first time this season, CSU was able to do that in this win. Really hot start, which was great to see on both sides of the ball. I posted about it from the DNVR Rams Twitter before the game. If there was ever a matchup where CSU could really benefit from having some explosive plays right off of the bat, generate some momentum, this was it. And they did exactly that. You get a stop on that first series. Justin Marshall goes 73 yards for a rushing touchdown on the first series. Hopefully he's okay. We didn't get an update from Norvell on him today, but we'll see if he's in practice this week. Definitely didn't look good, but you never know. Sometimes things can look bad and they don't prove to be that awkward, so I don't want to speculate. You get the interception. I mean, there was just so much good that happened in this game. Really a complete victory for the first time in a while. Offensively, defensively, special teams, CSU had the upper hand. And I said it once, but I'll say it again. I'm just happy for the guys in the locker room. They needed that. I'm sure I'm not the most popular guy over there at the moment, and that's understandable. I've been very critical of the team this year. I feel like I've been fair with my assessment. I'm not somebody who takes a ton of joy in being hypercritical or looking for every little thing to nitpick. But the reality was that the start to the year was not good enough, especially based on the expectations that were set coming in, not just from people like me, but the players said at the beginning of the season that this was a championship team. Jay Norvell said this was a championship team. I get it. It's human nature, but it always kind of makes me laugh from my perspective when teams do that. You see it in every single sport, so this isn't a CSU thing. It's not unique, but they'll come out and set the bar really high, and then when that bar is not met, they then start talking about how, the outside voices don't understand, and then we're being unfair and that. And I don't think that there's been a ton of animosity, at least openly, from the staff or the players or anything like that. But, you hear some of the post-game comments, and I understand that they probably were feeling themselves a little bit and thinking, like, all these people doubted us. Nobody believed in us. Nobody gave us a chance. And look what we were able to do. That's fair. They certainly outperformed expectations in this one. This was a big win. I think it's the most complete win of the Jay Norvell era. There have been bigger highlight moments. Like, this isn't a game you're going to see get reshared online year after year. Like the Boise State comeback wasn't as dramatic as even the Utah State comeback last year. But I liked that. I liked that this was close to a 4-quarter showing of dominance. The third quarter got a little bit stagnant. I think you could say the third quarter, maybe Fresno had the upper hand, but that said, CSU still outscored Fresno State 14-7 in that second half. So, I mean, really, I get that the offense was stagnant. They were trying to lean on that ground game after establishing a big lead in the first half. I think that makes sense, though. You're up 3 scores. You don't want to do anything dumb. You do want to run some clock. The last thing you want to do is have a bunch of incompletions. Going 3 and out is never ideal, but going 3 and out with multiple incompletions when you're up big, that's how you prolong the game. That's how you leave the back door open. And to CSU's credit, although Fresno fought hard, they made some nice adjustments at the half. They pulled within 7 after at one point, going down 28. The Rams were able to extend the lead again in the second half and get it done. And I wouldn't say that one game offsets a month of poor play. Everything isn't fixed or anything like that. But hope is at least on the table, which is important, not just for the fans, but for the guys in the locker room to have that tangible moment that you can look back on. I've always made the analogy of like going to the gym. It's really hard when you're putting the work in and you're not feeling like you're getting any satisfaction. You're not getting any victories. You're not making any progress. That's when it's hard to keep at it. This is potentially, and I say potentially with emphasis, a moment that can be a turning point for the program. 2-4 is most certainly not where you would want to be. And when you have a good game like this, it's really easy to start playing the what if game. I wrote about this in my post game column. Well, what if they had played for overtime against UTSA? Or what if the 2-point conversion was successful? How much differently would everyone feel right now if you were 3-3 versus 2-4? Playing devil's advocate, you could go the other way and say, well, what if the catch against Northern Colorado had been ruled a touchdown? You could be also 1-5. Both of those are fair to say. You played a lot of close games at this stage of the year. Nobody in the Mountain West is unbeatable, though. That matchup at Boise State is by far the hardest remaining game on the schedule. But, I mean, you play some good teams. Don't get me wrong. Hawaii is one of the better teams, I think, remaining on the slate. UNLV 6-0, basically just spiting me at this point. I still don't think they're a good team. I think they've gotten a lot of fluky outcomes at this point, and at some point we're going to see that revert. That said, credit them for finding a way to grind out these games. But I just think when you look at the second half of the schedule, it's a lot of coin flip games, a lot of games you could see going either way, starting with this weekend against Hawaii. UNLV at home is very much a winnable game. Their defense can't stop anybody. Neither can Air Force's. Wyoming's defense plays hard. Credit them for their comeback, but offensively, they've kind of been a mess. Like New Mexico, still a really fun story, and I thought they showed well against Boise State, but I don't think that's an impossible game by any means, and certainly the history favors CSU. All I'm saying is that 2-4 is not necessarily a death sentence, or at least it doesn't have to be. I always go back to that 2013 campaign when the Rams were 2-4 under Jim McElwain. The fourth loss was especially frustrating. It was against a good San Jose State team, but still very annoying. It kind of felt like all the hope that people had built up at the end of the 2012 season was going out the window. And it felt very similar to the first half of this year. They did play 13 games that year because they went to Hawaii and took advantage of that extra game opportunity. But they were 2-4 before a 30-point win up in Laramie over what was a 4-2 Wyoming team. Really flipped the course of the season for both those teams. I think Wyoming ended up finishing 5-7. The Rams ended up finishing 7-6. Obviously, they beat Washington State in the bowl game. There was just, it was like a light switch, with them. All of a sudden, the offense clicked. Defensively, they played hard. They were getting a bunch of big plays. I mean, they were 3-4 in 2008 before going to the New Mexico Bowl as well. So a path forward is potentially there to salvage the season, be able to have some respect after looking like it might be a disaster. Again, I don't think everything's necessarily fixed. Like, we don't want to get too carried away here. But the offense has put up season high in point totals and back-to-back weeks. If you can split the difference, between what they did against San Diego State and this past week, I think they're going to be in a lot of games. And I just think there's an opportunity here, if the Rams are able to build off of what they did well in this game, to at least make things interesting here over the second half of the season. Jay Norvell kind of said it today, but everybody's going to have to play CSU. And I think this was just a big confidence and inspiring moment for the Rams. Whether it ends up being the turning point is TBD. I saw a lot of cynical responses of, they're still going to suck. Maybe it ends up being fluky, or maybe it ends up being like that game up in Laramie in 2013, and then you look back and it was the catalyst of what ultimately turned the season around for CSU. I've got a couple of just kind of Fresno State fun facts as far as the series goes. 28 points is surprisingly only the third largest margin of victory for CSU against Fresno State. The Rams are 11-8 all time against the Bulldogs. Now they've won 7 of 9 overall after losing 3 straight between 99 and 02. But yeah, we beat them 37-0 back in 2015 at Hughes, beat them 41-3 in 1997. So I was kind of surprised to see 28 points is only the third largest margin of victory, because Fresno's a good program. And we talked about the history going in. They'd been a thorn in the side of some pretty good CSU teams over the years. Kind of felt nice to throw some cold water on their optimistic season for once. 28 points is the biggest margin of victory for CSU under Jay Norvell. Surpasses the 21-point win over Utah Tech back in 2023. It's the biggest period for CSU as a program since beating New Mexico by 29 back in 2021. That said, I think CSU lost 9 straight or something like that after that win over the Lobos, so potentially a cautionary tale again. Everything isn't necessarily solved. The injuries are unreal at this point. They're really starting to add up. Dagan Myers, Jaquez Evans, both out for the year now. They've already lost Gabe Jones and Mackendy Wakalanji. Don't know if we're going to get Jacob Ellis back at any point. Morley and Warren have been out. It's been pretty brutal in that regard, but you've got to credit the effort of some of these younger guys who are making the most of their opportunity. I mean, that's what you want to see. Here's a clip from Jay Norvell's press conference this afternoon, talking about what he liked offensively, as well as Dagan Myers, who really showed some incredible toughness in this game. After that, we'll get into the recap, takeaways, everything else from the win over Fresno State. Give us a thumbs up, say what's up in the Toyota chat. Much love to everybody tuning in. But here is that clip of Jay Norvell.
The ball effectively, got the big play from Jay Marsh early in the game that got us going. Really tough performance by him. I'm proud of our running backs. We have a lot of depth at running back right now, and we're getting a lot of contributions from Lloyd Avant, from Justin Marshall. Jalen started the game off and got dinged, and then we put Justin in and he makes a big play. It's such a valuable asset to have good players that stack each other like that. Javion Kennard came in, made an explosive reception, and also made a couple other really nice plays in the game. The beautiful thing about these backs is they're incredibly unselfish, and all of them are playing special teams. Keegan Hollis is making a huge contribution on special teams. Justin Marshall goes down on the first kickoff after running 75 yards on a big play, and he breaks his face mask tackling the return man in the game. And so, not only are they doing a great job with the ball in their hands, but they're doing a great job helping the team in other areas. And I think that's the thing that I'm most proud of this group of guys. Incredibly unselfish and playing for each other, and listening to the coaches and the details of what we're asking them to do. And so that was very positive. And so things that we need to grow. I want to commend a couple players that played outstanding. Jacob Ellis was hurt, one of our captains. Robert Edmondson played his first game, really made as many reps as he played. and he was our big hit award winner. He had 2. And for a moment there, I thought Ray Lewis snuck into our team. I was like, where did that come from? You know, Robert, boom, in the backfield. Robert, boom, in the backfield. Almost identical plays. So really proud. I got to recognize Dagan Myers. And, you know, when you've been around this sport as long as I have, you really learn to appreciate what the sport is all about. The sport is about sacrifice. The sport is about mental toughness. And that's not a natural thing for people to do. Dagan Myers is a young kid trying to make an impact on the team. He became our punt returner. We had several injuries in the back end, and he had to play safety this past week, probably the most he's ever played. He breaks his collarbone and plays 4 more plays and catches the punt and doesn't want to tell the trainers that he's hurt. When you coach kids that do that, it's pretty amazing. And he is an amazing kid. And, you know, we ask a lot of our kids. And we had a lot of kids respond on Friday night. And so very proud of that type of effort. And I think we'll continue to get that.
All right, Jay Norvell showing emotion there, has the last couple of times he's spoken with the media. I see some questions coming in about, you know, what happens if we go 6-6, 7-5. We can talk about that at the end of the show. Let's shout out a couple of our partners real quick. We'll get into the takeaways, and we've got a ton to get into. Hey, Colorado, stop by your local Dick's Sporting Goods for the hottest apparel footwear from top brands like Nike, Adidas, Originals, Hoka, DNVR, and more. Plus, score the latest equipment for baseball, football, soccer, basketball, golf, all your tailgating essentials. If you find a lower price, we'll match it with our best price guarantee. It's so cool that we're in Dick's Sporting Goods. It really is genuinely crazy to think about, you know, small startup with like 15 of us back in 2019. Now we're in multiple markets, Dick's Sporting Goods. It's just wild. But if you see some of our gear out in the wild when you're at Dick's, snap a photo, send it our way. Just makes me smile every time I think about it. Get your gear fast with free curbside pickup at your nearest store or easy shipping from Dicks.com. Every season starts at Dick's. Life is at times very tough. It's very easy to get worked up. Our friends at Coors Light encourage you to rise above during these moments. We've all been there. Maybe you're stuck in the airport, a million delays. There's nothing you can do. I was trying to come home from the studio late night Saturday night after frustrating Avs loss to Dallas, and then I got caught in the rush hour. It felt like rush hour. It was 11:30 at night. The traffic leaving Coors Field for the Paul McCartney concert, which by all accounts was incredible, but really boned me. It was brutal. Took me like 50 minutes to go 4 miles downtown. I've never seen anything like it. I was seeing red. I was going full Dennis Reynolds from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, cursing up a storm, wanting to punch the steering wheel, all the stereotypes. It wasn't a good look. I'm glad I was by myself. I'm glad nobody could hear me. But, you know, when I got home, I felt dumb. You know, it just made the situation worse. Choose chill. That is the takeaway from that embarrassing story there. Choose chill, because the alternative is rarely a positive solution. Once you put yourself in that chill state of mind, kick back, reward yourself with an ice cold Coors Light, obviously not while driving. But visit CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Joey says the younger kids that don't get much playing time looked better than the product CSU has had on the field since the start of the season. I mean, it was encouraging that some of the younger guys stepped up on both sides of the ball. And I think there is probably something to that, of guys being really hungry for an opportunity and making the most of it. You got to credit them for, you know, seizing the day. I also think that can be complicated, and we can oversimplify things. If you put young guys out on the field before they're ready, they're not going to look like what they looked like on Saturday night, just playing devil's advocate. That's especially hard, like running back. There's a lot to learn. And I think we oversimplify things at time. That said, the explosion shown by guys like Javion Kennard, Justin Marshall ran really hard in this one. Again, prayers up for him. Hopefully he's okay. We did not get an injury update yet. We shall see if he practices tomorrow and Wednesday. Would be a big loss. It was great to see the depth shine. And I wrote about this. I kind of said it earlier, I think, but it was validating in some ways that the offense looked like what I envisioned. You saw some of these guys in camp, the explosiveness of Kennard, Rocky Beers. I know he's been dinged up. Losing Jackson Warren was a big blow. But you saw these guys in camp and people like Lloyd Avant, and you knew what Dupree was, and you knew that Armani, could be pretty good. There were high hopes for some of the receivers that maybe haven't quite lived up to the expectation yet. Injuries, I think, have been a factor there. I refuse to believe that Jordan Ross has just fallen off a cliff. I think that turf toe is probably impacting him more than we know. But they needed to find a spark offensively somehow, some way. And they did it in this one. To their credit, 4 touchdowns on their first 4 offensive possessions. Got a couple of turnovers defensively and made the most of those. 21 points off of turnovers. That was great to see. Based on what we had seen leading up to this game, it kind of felt like CSU and Fresno had flipped roles. Fresno shot themselves in the foot repeatedly, felt very CSU based on, again, like the first 5 weeks. CSU looked like the timely team that, maybe they're not perfect, but if you, cough the ball up, we're going to scoop and score. You commit a penalty on 4th down to extend the drive, and CSU is about to settle for a field goal. You commit the penalty, extend the drive. What do they do the next play? Throw a touchdown. Like it was in every phase of the game what we had been waiting to see from this Rams team. And very fitting that it comes like just after everybody had thrown in the towel. Everybody's writing them off, myself included. I'm not trying to act like I saw this performance coming. In no way did I see this game coming. And I just got to credit the staff and also, the heart of the players. And that's not to say that, like, again, everything's fixed or all our problems are solved or, the last month didn't count, because it did. They all count. But it was encouraging to see the fight that this team displayed under the circumstances. They're decimated by injuries, and to come out and play the way they did against a quality FBS team in Fresno State, and to see what it meant to them, and to, Norvell's getting emotional, getting teary-eyed, like in the press conferences, like from a human standpoint, it was really cool. And I'm rooting for those guys, and I'm happy to see them get that moment, because it's hard when you start losing week after week to continue to do the right things. And I just hope that this can be the moment we look back on where everything kind of flips, because I do think there's a lot of good dudes, both on that staff, but also like in the program. And you saw the toughness, the commitment, the willingness to win. Norvell talking about, Myers doing what he did. That's incredibly admirable. Jalen Dupree, though, he's had some ankle injuries that have held him back a little bit these last couple of weeks, slowed him down at the very least. And, for him to go back into that game, that speaks volumes. I saw some people kind of upset about that. Why are we putting this guy back in? Because we needed to close it out. There was nothing going offensively in the third quarter. Fresno stacking the box, didn't have a ton of success throwing the ball in that third quarter. And that was a guy that was willing to put his own body on the line in order to get the win. And when I think about the effort of guys like him and Owen Long and Jay mentioned Edmondson, and there's a lot of guys you could point to. It's cool. When you get to know these guys on a personal level, you can't help but root for them and want them to have that success. And, whether it ends up being enough in the long run at the end of the year, that's a conversation for another day. But to quote Kevin from The Office, it just feels good to win one. And I'm really proud of the effort that we saw in all 3 phases in this performance. Just kind of a brief recap here. Again, it's been a little while since Friday night. I really needed that hot start. Fresno State wins the toss. They decide to receive, and they get a 1 first down, 5-play drive. but the defense, to their credit, held and got the ball back. Owen Long comes up with a big sack, his first of the year, another monster game from him. He leads the nation in tackles by like 15, on pace for 170 tackle season, putting up numbers straight out of 1975 when teams were running the ball 50 times a game straight at the linebackers. It's really crazy to see. He's a modern Brian Urlacher. But that sack was huge. And then, offensively, Dupree with a nice run off the bat, but kind of looked like he injured that ankle that I mentioned, or re-aggravated it. I would probably be the more accurate way to phrase that. And J Marsh comes in and breaks off a 73-yard touchdown run. Great vision, great breakaway speed. Love to see that. That's a guy who has had great success at times throughout his CSU career, probably not getting the amount of touches this season that he would want, but he's stuck it out. He's not being a bad teammate. He's not half-assing it. And when he goes out there, he tries to make explosive things happen. And every now and then, man, he's a home run hitter. He breaks off a long one, and it's fun to see. And that's why, you see the explosiveness of Marshall and of Javion Kennard, and Lloyd Avant's been very productive. Like, I think at times people have been frustrated by the running back by committee approach because Jalen Dupree is a bona fide superstar. But the depth of that backfield is probably the greatest strength of this roster. And it feels like they are finding a way to maximize each guy's potential. And it maybe took a little longer than we would have hoped. But I think that you see some of the stuff they're doing schematically, like the wheel route, which was perfectly designed, getting Kennard on a linebacker there, or the fade to Rocky Beers even. Like they are finding ways to put their guys in a position to, one, get a favorable matchup, but two, take advantage of their athleticism. Rocky Beers is a guy who can move really well. He's been dinged up a little bit. We saw what he can be as a pass catcher in this game. Kennard is a home run hitter. I mean, he was wide open on that wheel route. Credit him for making the catch. Always kind of not always, but sometimes a shaky proposition, when it's backs coming out of the backfield like that, get a little too excited. It's easy to, not bring it in, start looking ahead. But he had that play, and he also had a really huge conversion on third down, a little swing pass to him in the backfield early in the fourth quarter. There are just so many instances you could point to of guys stepping up in this game. Jace Bella, former walk-on, ends up playing safety. They have to slide AJ Nolan down to the nickel because we're missing Dylan Phelps, and Jace Bella gets 2 interceptions in this game. Like that's straight out of a movie. Nolan played really well at the nickel too. Like, he's not a guy who racked up a ton of stats in this one, but his pressure on the quarterback is what led to that first interception. And he had a couple of really nice pressures off the edge, all of them resulting in big plays. The defense really did a great job of generating chaos in this win. 5 sacks, 8 tackles for loss. They had 8 other hurries. I mean, Warner was under duress all game long, and it resulted in him making some bad decisions with the football. The fumble, you kind of feel for him. The guy's getting beat up. He's running for his life. But credit, Agers for running him down, making a perfect strip, and then the effort that Paul Tangelo has to scoop and score that from like 39 yards out there looking like a running back. Took a Fresno offensive player for a sled ride for about the last 10 yards of that. I mean, it was beast mode-esque, and it was just one of so many moments where the Rams were playing complementary football, stepping up in key spots, and it just felt so very un-CSU based on really the greater history of the last 20 years, but especially the first half of the season. Like this team just looked night and day from what we had seen, and you've got to credit them for pulling out this type of performance against a quality team like Fresno State after, everybody in the world had given up on them and thrown in the towel. And again, I put myself in that group as well. We might have prematurely written this group off. Now, I don't know if we have a large enough sample size. I keep adding, these qualifiers because, again, we've seen this in the past. In 2021 under Adazio, they throttled San Jose State, New Mexico in back-to-back weeks. And of course, because Adazio's a prick, he comes to the podium and, puffing his chest out, going full WWE heel. You guys are all idiots. You didn't believe in us. Now look. And then, they got railed for like 8 straight weeks after that. But it puts hope back on the table, and we have seen it before. 2-4, not necessarily a death sentence. And again, I am rooting for these guys to find success, because I think there are a lot of good dudes in this program. I think there are a lot of guys that are playing their hearts out. And as bad as it was over the first 5 weeks, which was really bad, like atrocious, there's a possibility that this can be a pivotal moment for this season, for the Norvell era, for all of it. And I hope that it is. There's nothing that would make me happier than to look back on some of the stuff I said going into the last game and just being flat out wrong. It would make me very happy. So I'll shout out a couple of other partners real quick. Love seeing how active the Toyota chat is. Shout out to Azure. Much love coming over from the Avs side of things. Avs weirdly playing 10:30 a.m. game. I had to cover a press conference, so I recorded that. That's what I'm going to be tuning into this evening. But again, let's shout out a couple of our partners, and we'll keep this rolling. Whether you need snapbacks, truckers, fitteds, beanies, or tees, Branded Bills has you covered with performance and style. If you're looking for gear to make your brand stand apart from the crowd, Branded Bills has you covered. With the best custom headwear, start your order. Their dedicated team will help you create the exact custom apparel you need. They've designed some sweet DNVR and ALLCITY hats for us that are available for purchase online. They have a partnership with CSU. I got a new one here, kind of subtle camo, very sharp. Very appreciative of our awesome presenting partners, Branded Bills, for hooking me up. I got a couple more here in the background on the set. Really comfortable, really versatile. Can wear them with a t-shirt, can wear them with a polo, dress it up, dress it down type deal. Their partnership with CSU is awesome. Really great on-campus collection. Head to brandedbills.com. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. Trucks have always been a part of Toyota's DNA. For generations, Toyota's built durable legends destined for greatness, perfect for Colorado. Whether you're conquering off-road trails, whether you're hauling the weight of the world, there's a Toyota truck that's just right for you. Check out the Tacoma, check out the Land Cruiser. They've got 17 models with available all-wheel drive, so even if you're not a truck guy, they've got a lot of great options, from mid-sized SUVs to the larger options as well. The 4Runner is obviously a classic. They also offer more low and zero emission vehicles combined than any other automaker to help customers reduce their carbon footprint. 16 hybrid vehicles to choose from. Toyota is a proud partner of CSU Athletics and the official vehicle of DNVR. Toyota, let's go places. Okay. We're going to get into the takeaways. Kind of recapped there before the break, but maybe started to go into the takeaways and went off on a little tangent. But the hot start was absolutely massive. CSU both started and finished this game well, which is not something that's happened very frequently over the last 5 years or so. Outscored Fresno State total 28-0 between the first and the fourth quarter. That's winning football. And I have been desperate to see this team come out firing the way that they did. Jokingly posted from the Rams Twitter, CSU fans seeing, the Rams come out firing, going full Ricky Bobby. I don't know what to do with my hands, because we had just been desperate to see something like this. And I think it really caught everybody off guard. A lot of Ram fans decided to stay home, but the students still turned out in masses, which was awesome to see. I just continue to be so impressed by the student turnout. The support for athletics is night and day from when I was a student. And I love to see it. I don't fault a lot of the students that didn't get into athletics for long stretches, because frankly, the product was just not worth their time, keeping it real. There are sickos like me who are going to show up rain or shine to win or 12 wins. I'm going to be there. I always have been and always will. But, it's hard to win over the casuals when you aren't winning. And I just think that the commitment and the dedication that the students have shown, it was a rainy night. To show up on a Friday night the way that they did. They didn't stay as long as you would hope, but again, I don't blame them. It was a blowout, and it's a Friday night. I get it, but they have been awesome, and I just hope to see that continue. Norvell's, mentioned with homecoming coming up, he hopes to see the students break the attendance record. I would love to see that as well. We're going to need a big home field advantage for a quality team against Hawaii coming in. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Play clip of Jay Norvell, and then obviously we'll set the scene more in depth for that game on Friday morning at 11 a.m. Okay, sorry. Getting back into my notes here. I felt like the turning point of this game, or at least the moment where I thought, man, this is legit going to be a dominant showing from CSU, was early in the game. I really didn't understand Fresno State going with the fake punt down 14 at midfield. And if you are going to go for it there, why not just keep your starting offense on? It felt very cutesy. Felt like some of the frustrating things we had seen from CSU in some of those tight losses, like just overthinking it and getting too cute. And credit to the defense. They recognized it from the beginning. Robert Edmondson fills that hole, sniffs it out, stuffs the play, exactly what you would want to see. It was textbook. But I thought that was really dumb of them. They turned the ball over on downs there. Then, a couple plays later, they actually get the stop on third down. It's 4th and 4, I believe. And they jump off sides and allow CSU to get a first down, end up throwing a touchdown to Rocky Beers, go up 21-0. I mean, really, Fresno, after playing pretty clean football for a while now, we had Gabe Camarillo on, Fresno State Insider, and he's just hyping up how Fresno State, a 4-quarter team, practices so hard, the attention to detail, all that. And, I'm not mocking him, because they had been a team that had executed really well and done a good job of not beating themselves. And I wouldn't say they necessarily beat that. Like, I think a lot of the turnovers were the product of quality CSU play, not stupid decisions by the quarterback, but good pressure, not the best decision to throw that first one up. But, again, is the product of AJ Nolan coming hard off of the edge and able to get him to throw the ball up, which we need to see more of. That was part of the problem in that loss to San Diego State. When you play as aggressively as Tyson Summers, pardon me, you better get home or you're going to put your DBs in a pretty tough position. The DBs did play well. Had like 7 or 8 PBUs in this game, couple picks, 3 picks, I believe, is the most since the 2017 win over Oregon State. As was the 49 points scored by CSU, was the most points scored by CSU in the Norvell era, but also the most points scored by the Rams since 2017, when they scored 50 plus 3 different times. Going through the numbers there, I'd kind of forgotten how explosive that offense got at the end of 2016. Did it a couple times then as well. It's been a long time since we've seen this type of performance. 58 remains the most points scored by CSU in the Canvas Stadium era. I love the way that CSU always had a response in this one. They created explosives on both sides of the ball, but even when Fresno was able to fight back a little bit in that second half, they adjusted well. They stopped the run, which was key for them. If they didn't do that, it would have turned into an even uglier route. But, things could have gotten much tighter for CSU than they ended up doing. Like, we've seen that a million times. The Rams end up blowing a game they should have won. And, Fresno, they're a good team. They're a 5-win team. They're going to make some plays. They're not just going to roll over. They're well coached. But in that second half, you're trying to run the ball with consistency. It wasn't really working. I think they had 4 or 5 3-and-outs in a row. I mean, after really being solid on third down in that first half, and we'll talk about some key conversions there. Fresno did a good job of at least staying in the fight, hanging around, giving themselves an opportunity. But to CSU's credit, they didn't let things compound. Yes, offensively, it got a little bit rough, but what did the defense do? They end up forcing a couple of key turnovers on downs. They get another pick later on. It was just a really resilient performance from a team that has had a year from hell, that has been decimated by injuries that nobody believed in. And that is a testament to the culture in the locker room. I know that some people will roll their eyes when you hear that, but I've covered a lot of teams over the years that objectively quit. Maybe not necessarily for the entire season, but you saw them throw in the towel for a significant stretch. I think you saw that late in the Adazio era. I think you saw that at times in 2018. It's easy to do when things aren't going well. It's easy to just lay down and let things compound. And the Rams didn't do that. They showed a lot of heart, and hopefully it's the beginning here. We shall see. But there was just so much to like in this one, and it was almost frustrating that you were able to see like some of what this team is capable of doing, because it's like, what took you so long? I do think the injuries are a factor. I think going to Matt Mummy as a play caller has very clearly benefited the offense. I think while not all of the offensive struggles were on Braden, I think very clearly switching to Jackson Brousseau was the right decision in the end, just because he's looked more comfortable in the pocket, and he's decisive with his decisions. He's done a good job of playing turnover-free football. All of that was great. Again, like I think it's multiple factors that have kind of led to what have resulted in better offensive execution here these last couple of weeks, albeit, some of that being in garbage time against San Diego State. But I just was really impressed with all three phases of what CSU showed in this win. And I really hope to see more of it. Really, really hope to see more of it. Chase says, I was getting flashbacks to the 2017 Boise State game. That Boise one, you could feel it early in the third quarter, even like closing it in halftime, that it was going to be much tighter than it should have been after that first quarter. I don't know. You could just like feel it in the air. I never felt that bad. Had Fresno State tied it, those feelings probably would have started to creep in for me. But just based on how well the defense was playing, I felt pretty firm. But I did think that they were going to need to score more points. Like, I don't think if they wouldn't have been able to score those 14 in the second half, might have been a different story. But again, credit CSU for coming out and taking hold of this game early, creating those explosives in both phases, taking advantage of Fresno State's special teams miscues, and really maximizing their opportunity to win a game here. They increased their margins significantly, whereas in, UTSA, Northern Colorado, Washington State, some of those other games, they basically did everything in their power to decrease their margins, which really weren't all that wide to begin with. It was just a very encouraging showing. I still would really like to see the wide receivers get going just a little bit more. I like that they targeted Armani Winfield early in this one, didn't really go back to him a ton throughout, but he also didn't throw the ball a ton in that second half, which is understandable. But I do want to see them get going a little bit more. Again, I think that turf toe might be impacting Jordan Ross pretty significantly. Maher only had one catch. It was a loud catch, though. It all heart on that screen where he could have gone down for a loss, and instead, just wants it more than the defender and ends up fighting for a first down. That was great to see. Had a couple of really big third down conversions in this game. They were only 4 of 12, so on paper, it's not going to jump off at you or anything like that. And a lot of those, again, were in that third quarter when you had a couple of 3-and-outs in a row, and then even one drive where you failed to convert on third down actually ended up being a touchdown in the end, because again, Fresno State jumps off sides on that field goal attempt, so doesn't necessarily tell the whole story. When you see 4 of 12 on third down, that looks rough. But on the second drive, you have a key conversion on about 3rd and 5 with Armani Winfield on kind of a tunnel screen. Does a good job, great blocking. Then on the third drive, the Maher screen keeps the drive alive initially, and then Lloyd Avant has a red zone draw that gets a key first down as well before they end up throwing a touchdown to Rocky Bears. I think that was about 3rd and 5. And I think that was a big factor in this game. Not only the fact that you had some early success on third down and were able to put points on the board, but you pretty consistently put yourself in manageable third downs, which had not been the case these last couple of weeks. I think 2 weeks in a row, your average was about 3rd and 10. In this game, it's about 3rd and 5. There's not a whole lot of plays in the playbook for 3rd and 10 that you're going to feel confident about with any type of consistency. Maybe if you've got prime John Elway back there or something like that. But, 3rd and 5, that gives you both options. You're leaning towards passing downs more times than not. But especially when you have backs the way that CSU does, you can catch them off guard on a draw like they did in the red zone. And I really liked some of the designs. I felt like some of the screens were essentially an extension of the run game. I liked that they did a good job of getting the ball in the hands of a lot of different playmakers, and to the credit of those guys, they found a way to make big plays. Maher and Winfield, no, they didn't get all the glory in this win, but those first downs end up leading to touchdown scoring drives. Like that's the difference between winning football. It really is a game of inches. I know it's a cliche. I roll my eyes as well, but like 2-3 key plays, maybe you're not making the play that's going to be the highlight of the game, but you are what extends the drive and what allows the highlight to happen in the first place. And I think there's just a lot of instances of that. A lot of different guys in this game stepping up and making plays when their number was called, offensively, defensively. You got guys going into new roles because of all the injuries. And, Robert Edmondson has a huge game at linebacker. Jay Spella plays great at safety, gets a couple of interceptions. All the backs. Kennard gets his number called, has one of the more exciting touchdowns of the season. I know it wasn't the 73-yard run, but I love that design on the wheel route. Did a good job of drawing the defender inside with another receiver, and then he's runs untouched into the end zone. Just a really gorgeous design. Perfectly thrown ball from Jackson Brousseau. Not the hardest throw, but we look back at like Washington and some of the instances in week 2 when there were big play opportunities on the table, the Rams weren't executing, or they would execute and they'd have a penalty and it would take it back. And it just feels like we're seeing less of that, less CSU shooting themselves in the foot. Hated the penalties in the third quarter. I will say that as positive and optimistic as a lot of these takeaways will be from this showing, that's the type of shit that can cost you a game. And that did make me want to pull my hair out at times. The kick catch interference on the punt, that's whatever. I thought that was a really soft call. I didn't even feel like he made contact with him. Was very clearly trying to hold up. I just felt very ticky-tacky. Whatever, you can live with that. But unnecessary roughness on third down, gave them first down, can't have that. And then the unsportsmanlike on the sideline. I don't know who it was. Norvell implied today that whoever it was definitely got lit up pretty good by the staff. Like they were certainly made aware of that being unacceptable. But it was kind of a small stretch. It was all really isolated to about a drive and a half there. But 4 15-yard penalties in the third quarter, that's unacceptable. And it really jacks your penalty yardage up because, again, for the other 3 quarters, kind of felt like they played really solid football. Dylan says, speaking of wide receivers, what's the word on Tucker's injury? Thought he was going to be good. Yeah, he's been out for about a month now. Norvell hasn't really talked about him. I'll try and get some type of update. Unfortunately, hasn't really lived up to what people were hoping that he would be, myself included. Think he has potential. I'm not trying to bash on him. Injuries are always an unfortunate element, but I mean, he wasn't doing a ton before that either. But I would like to see all the receivers, kind of get worked into the mix. And I think if you can do some of what you did with the backs and the tight ends, that's actually going to loosen up the coverage on some of these guys outside and make things easier. And it all kind of works together. So I think there's a lot of things you can build off of in this game. And I like that they did a good job of scheming up some plays, like, getting Rocky Beers on a linebacker on a fade. Like that's a matchup he's going to win more times than not. Trying to keep up with Kennard in the flat is tough, and especially because he might just run past you on a wheel route like he did in this instance. Like there's plays that you not only ran successfully, but it also is going to give you opportunities to create, counters off of it. And this is just what I had envisioned the offense looking like. Maybe not quite this reliant on the backfield, but I mean, I've said it since the spring that the running backs were very exciting and that they were the biggest strength of this team. And I think that if the receivers aren't going to be all world, then you can do some things like you did with the tight ends and the backs in this game that kind of help offset that. And again, that's only going to help free things up for those receivers out wide. Start to see guys like Armani Winfield, who had a touchdown against San Diego State, had a big conversion in this one. Tommy Maher. I mean, I still think there's a world where those guys, Taylor Neer, maybe Kojo Antwi becomes a more significant factor in the second half. They still don't really have a guy who's been that vertical threat over the top. Maybe that can be Kojo. But it gives you a little bit of hope, which is really all I'm asking for here. I mean, obviously I have higher standards than going 6-6 every year, and going 6-6 at this point would feel good, probably feel better than it should, just based on what this team probably should have done. But we'll just have to see. We'll have to see how it all plays out at this point. I feel like if they can play the way they did in this game more times than not, you're going to probably come out on the winning side, because I just don't think anybody in the Mountain West is all that good other than Boise. And even Boise, you can move the ball on them. And Madsen, if you pressure him, they look pedestrian, especially if you stop the run. CSU's done that pretty frequently in a lot of these games. Like, I don't think that's a matchup that's awful. I don't think, if I was betting, I wouldn't put money down they're going to go into Boise or win or anything like that. They've never won there. It's a really tough place to win. They have one of the best home winning percentages of anybody in the country in the 21st century, probably the best. But again, I look at the schedule. I don't think that anybody is terrifying, or you should look at it like going to Austin last year or anything like that. And it's not 2011 Boise or something like that is all I'm trying to say. It feels like everybody is kind of on par with each other. And if you can come out swinging the way they did in this one, if you can capitalize on your opponent's mistakes while not making a ton of them yourself, you're going to have an opportunity. And while it sucks to lose more players, like, I'm really worried about the punt returner situation, not having Myers. He seems to be the only guy on the roster that feels confident back there. But I think we're seeing guys that are hungry, like a Kennard, like a Jace Bella, like AJ Nolan getting back on the field after injury, like Robert Edmondson, like Kenyon Akers. I think they are making the most of their opportunities, and I really hope to see more of that. Just kind of some key stats for you. 172 yards offense in that first quarter, went 3 of 3 on third down. That hot start was absolutely massive. 21 points off of turnovers, incredible. Need to see more of that moving forward. Fresno had 100 more yards of offense plus 10 more minutes of time of possession, but that's deceiving because CSU had explosive plays offensively. They had optimal field position based on Fresno mistakes. And what was really encouraging to me was CSU was 4 of 4 in the red zone, whereas Fresno State was 0 of 2 with a turnover on downs and an interception. So they weren't finishing drives. They're moving the ball, but they're not finishing drives. That's winning defense. Bend, don't break. 5 sacks, 8 tackles for loss. By far the best production from the defense of the year. Also had 8 more QB hurries and 7 PBUs. So just a really aggressive approach on both the trenches and the back end. I love that. I love that the average third down distance was cut in half from 10 to 5 yards. Need to see more of that. Run game wasn't great on third down. That is an area they need to improve significantly, something to keep an eye on for sure. You punted 6 times. That's not sexy, but that means you're not turning the football over. In some sense, a punt is still a successful drive because you didn't give it away. I mean, obviously you don't want to punt 6 times, but you get what I mean. They're making good decisions, not putting themselves in harm's way. They're at least flipping the field. They're not having those catastrophic mistakes that compound things on you so quickly. And again, while Fresno did move the ball, I felt like CSU did a good job of taking the big plays away. Fresno wants to run the ball. They kind of want to create some shots over the top off of it, not too dissimilarly from what San Diego State did a week ago, a little less flashy. But basically all of their passing success came within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. They were only 50% on anything past that, 2 of 7 on 15 yards downfield. So yeah, they did some stuff within the line of scrimmage, but it's hard to do that all the way up and down the field. And again, they struggled to finish drives. So you might move the sticks a couple of times, but if you're not putting points on the board, that's winning football for CSU. You know, if they're able to keep the opponents out of the end zone, did a good job of that. Slowed down in the second half, but it did make sense to lean on the run. I like that they found a way to use that passing game to open things up, and then some people thought it was unsportsmanlike or whatever, mostly trolls, but I was like, put all the points on the board you can. I was stoked to see Jalen Dupree get in the end zone. No, you didn't need the points there. You technically couldn't need it. This is a Rams team that's been through hell this year. Let him play. Dupree deserves that touchdown with the way he came in and closed the game out and showed his toughness and willingness to put it all on the line for his teammates. Just really selfless stuff, and I've got a lot of respect for him. My players of the game, I'm going to go co-players of the game because I think we should shout out more guys if we can. Jackson Brousseau, only 12 of 18 throwing the football, but 144 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, did a good job of keeping the sticks moving, did a good job of avoiding negative plays, avoiding the pass rush, and put the team in a position to succeed. All those running backs were great. They all get helmet stickers as well. But I think I got to go Jackson Brousseau offensively, and then Owen Long, 16 total tackles in the game, a couple tackles for loss, his first sack. He's incredible. Modern Brian Urlacher. But I would give helmet stickers to both the offensive and defensive lines. Night and day from what we saw against San Diego State. Really got to credit those guys for stepping up. Robert Edmondson, who Norvell shouted out in his first career start, 9 total tackles from him, 5 of which were solo, a couple tackles for loss, had a couple more hits on the quarterback as well. He was coming downhill like a bat out of hell. Want to see more of that. Lamondre Joe had another really good game. He had 6 total tackles, 3 PBUs, plus a hit on the QB. AJ Noland, 4 quarterback hits in this game coming off of the edge. At least one, if not 2, led to picks. Paul Tangelo, defensive touchdown. Kenyon Agers gets the strip. You got to shout those guys out. CJ Blocker gets an interception. Like, there are so many guys on that defensive side. You've got to get a helmet sticker to every one of the running backs. Obviously, Rocky Beers, he scores 2 touchdowns. So many people stepped up, and it really was great to see. And then lastly, I want to give one to Dagan Myers, who Norvell got emotional shouting out. But I mean, to play 4 more snaps with a broken collarbone and field a punt, and I went back and watched it. Like, you couldn't tell it didn't wince. The toughness of that kid, very commendable, and I hope to see him back on the field next year. Obviously, a big game coming up against Hawaii. I think this is kind of what sets the tone for the rest of the season. Let's play a clip of Jay Norvell kind of talking about them real quick, and then we'll wrap up with a couple of final thoughts here.
You know, I sent Timmy a couple messages, and I probably won't talk to him now until after the game, but you know, I'm really proud of what they're doing there. Very close with Timmy. Timmy is a leader. He is a really smart coach, but he really gets the most out of people. And so I really appreciate what he's doing with his football team. He's got a quarterback, a young kid, and he's done a fantastic job. Micah has, playing with a lot of confidence, plays like a young Timmy Chang, really, to be honest with you. Moves well, the receivers are doing well. They're doing a good job of throwing the football. They played some tough games. I think the biggest transformation you can see in their football team is their mental toughness down the stretch. They're winning games in the fourth quarter, and that is really, I know, pleasing to see for Timmy. They're playing a good job on defense as well, and you know, playing hard-nosed. Won a big game at home on Saturday night, and so really have made some progress with their program. They will be a challenge, just like everybody will, down the stretch. We, as a football team, are incredibly excited. This is homecoming. It's a special weekend. We'll have a lot of people back in town. We want to break the student record. I thought our fans last week were fantastic, and we want to build on that. And, you know, this is one of the best performances we've had since we've been here at Colorado State, and we want to continue to build on that.
I agree. Clearly one of the best performances. I said it before, I'll say it again. Felt like this was the most complete performance by CSU in at least 5 years. Certainly the Norvell era has a moment, if they can build off of, or has an opportunity to be a moment that we look back off of and say, you know, that's where it all turned around. It also could be a flash in the pan if you come out and get run by a good Hawaii team. I was high on Hawaii in the preseason. Everybody's giving me crap for putting them in the top third of the league. I think other than Boise, I think they're the best team that CSU will play from here on out. UNLV is very explosive offensively. I know they're 6-0. Their opponents are a combined 10-26 this year. And between Air Force, Wyoming, and Miami of Ohio, they have 3 of the flukier wins I've seen in college football, period, this year. They can't stop anyone defensively. But Hawaii is solid defensively. Everybody's going to look at the offense. The passing offense is great. They've got great receivers. They've got an athletic quarterback who can run around, extend the play. They're explosive. They're a tough matchup. But the reason this Hawaii team has been different this year is they've taken a pretty dramatic step defensively. They're a top third of the league defense, and we'll see if this offense can move the ball on them. It's going to be a really fun matchup, I think. It has an opportunity to be a pretty good game, and obviously the history between Norvell and Timmy Chang makes it that much more interesting. Let's throw it to overtime real quick. If you're watching on some of the TV platforms, you can finish this on the DNVR.com. If you're watching on Some of the other stuff, you're good. Just some final thoughts here. A couple of thoughts on the league as well as CSU. It really is about how they respond from here. Again, like this could be like that 2013 win over Wyoming, where you look back on and definitively this is where everything changed. It could also be like 2021 New Mexico, or it really proves to be a flash in the pan. I don't think anybody on the schedule is impossible to beat. I don't think the idea of going 7-5 is crazy. I think winning out is pretty tall ask based on what we've seen from this team over the first half of the year. But I think 7-5 is on the table. 3-9 is still probably on the table at this point too, because if every game is winnable, if every game's a coin flip, you could lose those coin flips, obviously. Whether that ends up being enough in the long run to get Norvell another year at CSU or potentially an extension, that's TBD. I think there's a lot of factors that go into that. You certainly would need to look really strong here over the second half of the season. Would basically every game, I think, would have to probably be like this one. But I am rooting for the guy. I am. I know that there are a lot of fans that are out on him, but I like the guy. I think he's a good dude. I think he brings in a lot of talent, and I think that handing the keys over to Mummy offensively has a chance to get this program going in a way that it had a chance to this season in the first place. It's frustrating that it took this long, no doubt. But I'm at least a little bit hopeful at this point. You know, like I see the path through the trees in a way that really we haven't probably since the Washington game. And I'm hoping to see them build off of that against what is admittedly a quality Hawaii team. And then, you know, if you beat Hawaii, anything's possible. You're 3-4, you know, you're going up into Laramie. It's never an easy place to win, but I've talked about this, you know, teams that win in Laramie almost always make the postseason. The last CSU team to win in Laramie and not finish at least 500 was all the way back in 1993. Only four CSU teams, in the last 50 years have won in Laramie and not finished above 500. And that's 1993, 1985, 1979, and 1975. If you can win these next two, anything becomes possible at that point. And then you've got a lot of coin flip games against UNLV, New Mexico, and Air Force Boise. You're certainly going to be underdogs, but who knows? You can move the ball on them. You've got a massive rested and travel advantage in this game, as Dylan is pointing out in the Toyota chat. CSU plays Friday night. They're at home. They get to stay home. Hawaii was at home last week, but they play late night Saturday night. Basically a 36-hour advantage. I mean, that's not nothing. We'll see if they can make the most of it, but it was fun. It was fun to see a lot of winning across state. You know, CSU, big win. The Buffs obviously won. We don't care so much about that, but Northern Colorado, you know, they pulled off a big win over Idaho. They're 3-3 and could easily be 5-1. I mean, Ed Lamb's doing a hell of a job in Greeley right now. And lastly, shout out to my guy, Tim Skipper, guy who's got me hired by CSU football, got me in the building. I owe so much of my career to him. To see him turn UCLA around. I know everybody gives New Heisel all the credit, and the offense has been great. You know, he's doing a great job as well. But Skip's a winner, and he's long overdue for a head coaching opportunity. And just as a guy who is a big factor in my life and who I owe a lot to, you know, all these years later, it's just really cool to see. Really, really cool to see. And I couldn't be happier for a good dude. That's all I've got for you guys. Shout out to our awesome producer, Dion, now full-time at DNVR. Certainly deserves it. Has worked his ass off. Has done a killer job as the producer for my show this fall. I could not do it without him. So want to shout out our guy, Dion. Want to shout out the incredible fans that were rocking DNVR in the stands. Was able to interact with a couple of you going into the tunnel there. I don't want to get too sappy and emotional. You guys know that I can. But it made me a little teary-eyed when I was going back to the press box. Like to see you get the fact that you guys were that stoked to interact with me in the first place meant the world. But to see you repping DNVR, you know, after everything this team had been through, again, like this community is just amazing, and I'm really thankful for all you guys. So that's all I've got. Thank you for listening to the DNVR Rams podcast presented by Branded Bills. Head to brandedbills.com. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. Much love, y'all. We are always proud to be. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.